So yeah, sandblasting. Wah, wah. It's gonna be so cool. No, it's gonna be really dirty. So now you get to this point where you need to blast the rust off of the old body. How are you going to do it? I mean, there's wire brushing and there's just scrubbing, and there's, if it's paint, old paint, you can use paint stripper. And I tend to use sandblasting because it does such a nice job and you've taken it right down. But the advantage, one of the advantages of sandblasting is you got a panel that is, you know, it's got a little bit of bubble and stuff on it, and the sandblasting will take that down so you can actually see if you have a problem that needs to be patched. So this car has been sanded like through the top coat, which was some kind of an enamel originally, dark green, and down to the primer, and then obviously left outside. I mean, even if it's not left outside, you can't leave primer bare because it's porous, right? It doesn't stop water. Well, then you look in here and you've got all kinds of little rust spicks and dots of rust and scratches and all that kind of stuff. So you think about this, well, what are we going to do with this? You can't just scuff it off and paint it. The only way to fix a car like this, old steel, is to take it right down to bare metal. And we'll talk about 3 ways to do that and which one turns out being the best. And you like this little lens. This is a macro lens that has lights on the front, and that's how you can get like super close up and still see it lit. Isn't that cool? Well, here's the 3 options. Sandblasting, which is the dirtiest. Oh boy. Another option is paint stripper, aircraft paint stripper. It's pretty gross too, right? Don't swallow it. Don't smoke it. Ooh, don't breathe the fumes. Don't get it in your eyes or your skin or your clothing. And don't use it on airplanes. It's just called aircraft paint stripper. You don't actually use it on airplanes. And then number 3 is this good old guy, sandpaper. We all know about sandpaper. And these all work good, have their advantages and disadvantages. So let's have a look. So the first one we'll try needs rubber gloves, of course. And you apply it with a paintbrush. Normally, oh man, I want to make sure that no kids get into here. Oh man. Okay, so this one loses. Okay. Oops, there you go. It wasn't even screwed on. All right, now normally you put some of this in a cup or a dish or something and apply it with a brush, but we'll just put it straight on a brush because we just want to, and you're not supposed to rub it around. One of the issues with this one is, well, the smell, of course. So you got to have it well ventilated. I got the garage door open here. And then the other thing is that you've got to wash it after with probably a hose, I guess, if you can do that. I mean, I couldn't do that in here because I'd get water under everything, but or else you can rag it down with wet rags or whatever. But the point is that you've got to clean that off after. Okay, I'm going to go wash this brush, and then we'll come back and see how it. All right, that's been a few minutes, and you don't want it to dry. Now that's taken the green paint off. Yeah, with a little work, you know. Okay, so the conclusion on this one, if you have nothing else, yeah, give it a try. And I suppose you could use a wire brush to kind of help. So I guess what you'll be looking at with this stuff is more than one trip through. All right, see what we got here now. If you leave it on nice and thick, comes off better. And And obviously, second time around, comes off better as well. Okay, so you can see there we're down to bare metal. I've got a grandson that uses this stuff, and we'll do his whole car with it, and works good for him, but maybe he has more time than money. Yeah, it would be probably 2 rounds anyway to get it down to bare metal. Okay, number 2, sander. This is a random orbital air sander, and I'll put a new piece of paper on just to give it the benefit of the doubt. Oh man, it gets pretty dirty under here, and then the paper doesn't want to stick. But this is actually a pretty good system. Works fairly good. This is 120 grit, and we'll take it right down to bare metal and see what that looks like. Goes pretty good where there's just primer. Okay, let's try it where we have the green enamel coat still in place. Well, it works pretty good, you know, the sandpaper. Guys have been doing that for years, right? I would say it's about the same speed as sandblasting and not as dirty. It does help you find the low spots, high spots. They show up in a hurry. Not that that's really helpful. There's probably 100 low spots in this car, little dings. And I'm not going to remember where they all are, because once I get this down to the bare steel, you don't see them anymore. And then you prime it, and then you can see them. They show up again because the epoxy primer is glossy. The biggest problem with this one is getting into cracks, okay? You got the rain gutter here. Yeah, there's no way. You'd be doing a lot of hand sanding in there, whereas the sandblaster will just clear that out beautifully. And yeah, so let's try the sandblaster and have a look and see what it looks like. Okay, you ready for this? You need to wear a lot more protective gear than what I have on right now, but I'm just going to deflect it away from me for the sake of this little comparison. The downside to sandblasting is that this shop is an absolute mess. I actually don't even want to have the camera in here. It gets full of dust every time. Clothes get full of dust. And yeah, even in the house, I go in and I take my coveralls off, shake them out outside, shake my shoes out and everything, and you go in the house and there's still sand all over the basement floor. It just gets in everything. And it's going to take me probably, I would say, 6 hours to clean this shop when I transition from sandblasting into painting. And you know, my good wife is going to come and help me because she's just super at cleaning up, and she loves using the air hose, you know. And blowing dust all over the place, gag. But you know, it's got to be done. And so we'll just open up both doors, turn the ventilator on full bore, open up the front door, the man door at the other side, and hope that there's a breeze, and it would just blow the dust. The neighbors must love me. More cookies, more pies. It's amazing how good they are, though, you know. People, they understand. I think, you know, the COVID thing helps in that way, too, because people kind of giving everybody a break in some senses. Don't wear a mask, though, you'll be in trouble. Somebody will jump on you. But no, but this kind of stuff, people are pretty forgiving, and I got to say, we just have excellent neighbors, you know, really nice neighbors, because there's always extra cars parked in our driveway. I don't know whose they are, but nobody ever squeals on us, so that's really nice. Okay, let's do the sandblast test. actually file your fingernails on that surface because it's got teeth. And the epoxy primer will hold on to that like crazy. This is the sanded part, the 120 grit sandpaper, and you can see it's a lot smoother with the odd scratch in it, right? The scratches are a lot further apart, and you feel that it's smooth. You see the reflection of my thumbnail in there because it's a lot smoother. Okay, here's the aircraft stuff, okay? And it's just plain old, well, not good enough. It's still got so much paint embedded in there and rust. So if you do the aircraft paint stripper, if you paint strip the whole thing, got all the paint off, you're still gonna have to go over it with a sandpaper anyway. And the winner is, well, they all have their advantages, right? But one of the things I'm really looking for in the finished surface is a good bite to hold on to the epoxy primer. And sandblasting definitely gives you the best bite for that. So that's a huge advantage. In fact, yesterday I sanded the trunk lid and yeah, got the paint off nice. It was okay. It's about the same speed as sandblasting, maybe a bit slower. And then looked at the surface though and I thought, you know what, it's too smooth. The sandblasting is like about 180 grit. But this stuff here, the sanded part of it, even though you sand it with 120 grit paper, it's way smoother than the 120 grit paper, right? And so after sanding that entire deck, the trunk lid, I went over it with a sandblaster anyway. Just lightly, just to put that bite back into it, give it some teeth, right? So sandblasting comes number one if you have a place to do it and the equipment to do it. And again, I've got two 5-horse air compressors here, so it's really nice. I'll be able to finish this body inside and out today. Or I could use that water blasting thing where you use a pressure washer. I've got a nice pressure washer sitting right there that I hardly ever get to use because I live in a city where you're not allowed to wash your car. You have to take it to a car wash. So it's a $50 thing that you hook up to the pressure washer and you put the wand in a bag of sand and it sucks the sand up with the water and it's dust free and it blasts just like a sandblaster. Well, I thought really serious about that. But then what do you do to catch that sand? You've actually got to build some kind of a dam because that sand in the water is all going to run out and down the alley. I mean, you couldn't do that inside your garage. And if you do it outside, you've got to catch all that sand somehow and then separate the water out later. And then the sand takes a couple weeks to dry before you can recycle it and use it again. Well, I don't have that kind of time. The advantage is you don't need an air compressor, right? You just need a pressure washer. So then the other disadvantage, which I see as huge, says right on the instructions, you know, of the epoxy paint, as soon as you sandblast, you need to put that paint on. Well, if you're using the wet blaster, you got your car body soaking wet the whole time you're doing it. So that's what, 5 or 6 hours of blasting and your body's sitting there wet. Well, do you think it's not gonna rust? I tell you what, yeah, to me, that's just a no-brainer. That just eliminates that one altogether. Just use dry, man, get a compressor. The thing is with an air compressor is you can run so many other things. I mean, I run this orbital sander with my air compressor anyway. Like once you get an air compressor, yeah, you'd never live without one, that's for sure. So if you're still at that point, get an air compressor and get a big one. Get one that's at least 5-horse 2-stage so that you can run a sandblaster. And that wraps up our test, okay? So for me, I'm going with dry sandblasting and just grinning and bearing the amount of dirt that's going to go down my neck and in my shoes. The other advantage to the sandblaster is when you've got rust, corrosion, right? And it's in deep, it's pitted. You can blast that out of there, where the sandpaper is just going to go straight over it. And the aircraft paint remover isn't going to touch rust. So for the aircraft paint remover, you would need to have a body that's just rust-free, paint that's, yeah, just thick, gooey paint. You want to dissolve it off. If I was doing a motorcycle, for example, something a lot smaller, I would go with the paint stripper and sandpaper it after, because you don't have to go through all the mess of the and the equipment required to sandblast. You know, one of the things that you got to remember with sandblasting is if you get a big industrial sandblaster and you're doing a big panel like the roof of this car, it's going to heat that thing up and you can actually warp it and, you know, like make it bad. But with these little sandblasters, they're not getting any heat because you're doing like 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch wide strip. And you're moving around a lot and there's so much air coming through and not that much sand, and the sand isn't that aggressive. So I would do it like that. I wouldn't use a big industrial sandblaster. You could do that on your frame, which would be good, handy, that's faster and cleaner. But if it comes to bodywork, yeah, just get one of these little sandblasters and buy some crushed glass, 30 to 60 grit, and have at her. You can always have a shower after. So I guess what we're really talking about is how to choose your weapon. And you know that we don't really choose a weapon according to the outcome that we want so much as we do according to the process that we're going to have to endure to get there. Right? We want something that's effective, and a lot of that really actually has to do with our attitude. I mean, there's guys, there's no way they're going to sandblast just because it's too dirty. And, you know, you don't have everything you need, or it's not a perfect setup or whatever. But then buildings like that, isn't it? We're doing a lot of stuff here that is probably just grin and bear it, grit your teeth and let's get her done, because we got what it takes. And so when it comes to choosing your weapon, you know, whether it's your car or your life, you're going to choose the one that really reflects your attitude and your willingness, you know, to be, to really take care of business. And, you know, there's a lot of guys that their life looks like their car. Yeah, they're probably not doing too good. But one thing I love about choosing my weapon, you know, when it comes to sandblasting, is that I get the choice. It's up to me. I get to choose that, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put these dust masks on and all this paraphernalia, and I'm going to dig in there. I'm going to blast the rust off of this old car. And yeah, and then I'm going to have the right outcome when I'm done, the outcome that I want. And so that's why, you know, your project, when it's finished, it's reflecting your attitude as much as anything else. your willingness, right, to do the dirty work, to do the grunt work, and not only just to do it, but to learn it as well, because, you know, everything you do is something you've never done before until you've done it the first time, and then you're experienced. It's like the guy said, well, that's easy for you to say, you know how to do all those things. I'm like, well, I didn't know how to do them before either. But I really want to encourage you, you know, that the outcome of your life and everything in your life, every part of your life, has a lot to do with the attitudes that we choose, more than just, you know, the easiest way. And I just hope you're really doing well in all aspects, all the way around. And if you're not, go back out there and work on that car some more. It's like my dad would send me to the woodshed. Don't come back till you've had an attitude adjustment. And this whole COVID time, right, is really a time where we get to kind of do things that we've never done before, because we can't do the things that we used to do so much. And so I really want to invite you to connect with me. If there's something you want to talk about, or something that you know that I might be able to help you with, or whatever. Do you know that there was, who was it, Job, good old Job. He said something, well, it's in his book anyway, I'm not sure who said it, but it's that old men are not always wise. And, you know, we've been taught that gray hair means wisdom. It doesn't. There's a lot of guys with gray hair that are, yeah, you know, not everybody that's old is wise. But you know what, there's an opportunity for all of us to be an example and to be a mentor that others want to emulate. And to me, that's why we want a good outcome with our hot rod, or with our life, or with whatever it is that we're doing. We want a good outcome, not just so we can brag, but so that others can take an example and learn and be, yeah, strengthened, you know, and even comforted in peace in this day and age. I mean, the amount of regret and the amount of fear and stuff that goes around it. And sometimes we just need somebody to come along that isn't afraid. And you say, well, I guess maybe I don't need to be afraid either. So there's a great future, you know, and I'm turning 70 next month, and I have a great future. And if you're turning 80, you still have a great future, because until we're gone, there's always something good for us, and something good for us to do, and some way that we can be a benefit to others, be an example to others. So yeah, happy hot rodding.